Hello, everyone. We are back. I hope that everybody had time to go and get a drink, a coffee, some wine, some rum, whatever works for you. We're happy to continue, and thank you for everyone for still being with us. And we're looking forward for this next panel, which brings everything together. How can we create an event without strategic partnerships, collaborations between folks, and we have two experts that are coming on to discuss that. And right before we get into the conversation, we have our word from our sponsor, which I will play right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the panel on strategic collaborations. I am Ed Vertus, VP of Social Innovation at Groupe 3737, proud sponsor of the World Carnival Summit. At Groupe 3737, we understand the crucial importance of strategic partnership in driving innovation and creative, positive social impact. Our mission is to foster diverse and inclusive entrepreneurship across Canada, and this event aligns perfectly with our goals. In an ever evolving festival landscape, financial viability relies heavily on investment from government bodies, corporate sponsors, and influential partners. Our participation in this event allows us to showcase our expertise in strategic collaboration and ethnocultural entrepreneurship. Moreover, we'll be working and hosting workshops on inclusive entrepreneurship and mentoring sessions for young entrepreneurs all across Canada. Our sponsorship in this event is essential as it allows us to promote cultural diversity in the business world, share our expertise, and create connections with potential partners on a global scale. I look forward to exploring with you how we can effectively collaborate to address global challenges and build a more equitable and prosperous future for all.
Thank you, Ed Vertus of Groupe 3737 for those words. And yes, strategic collaborations are super important in finance and the building of a budget of any carnival. So here today we're going to talk with JP from because I know him as JP, Jean-Paul Mouradian, of JP Marketing, JPM Solutions. He'll tell us a little bit more about himself, as well as Andrea Boulay of the Hive, who is a major brand ambassador and handles many brand activations for various brands. So if you can maybe introduce yourself, JP.
Well, thanks, Tony and Lorraine, for making this event possible, by the way. Amazing initiative. I think we need this, and we need to bring color to Montreal with this movement that you guys are creating. So I'm very impressed and happy with this first edition. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. So I do a lot of things in the world of sponsorship. You have to understand the world of real estate, construction, and retail to be able to sell sponsorship. So I own a marketing agency called JPM Marketing Solutions. We are the sales force for many events, festivals, and our own events. Own also a construction company where we build brands, Subways, Bell, commercial brands, and we develop sponsorship programs for events in which we transform ROIs and returns. So that's a bit what we are, and we also organize, and I'm a promoter of one of the largest Grand Prix related events in the world from Montreal, and that's something that's a bit interesting how we develop our skills in sponsorship.
Thank you, JP.
My pleasure.
And if you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself as well, Andrea.
My name is Andrea, and I work at a company called the Hive in Toronto. I am a senior event director. So part of my role is designing, producing, and helping our brands, whether it's a proprietary large scale event for them across the US or in Europe or here in Canada. Also working with our brands that want to participate in festivals and sponsorships. We've worked a lot with Jean-Paul on Grand Prix. And that's where I met Lorraine and Tony, which was a wonderful experience for me. But so we just help our brands kind of come to life in different spaces that make sense for them or places where they might want to show up. So it's really my job to make that happen for them and to make sure the consumers are having a great time and getting something out of it as well.
Perfect. So that brings me to maybe one of my first questions would be, so how is it to align brands with the mission of various festivals? How do you go about that process?
Who wants to go first? Well, I can go first. Brands with festivals. So when you go at pitching brands, you need to pitch brands that fit with the event. If you go in with the focus of funding the event with the festival more than the objectives of the brand, usually you don't get great results. So our focus when we build a festival, our own events or festivals of our clients, we try to analyze what is the perfect fit for the brand to maximize their objectives and their ROIs and build up with the event with the experimental marketing that they can win out of it.
For you, Andrea?
Yeah, I think when, obviously we have a lot of different properties come because we deal with a lot of global brands. They want the participation and the rub that that brand has that brings credibility. And we have to sift through what is right for the brand. And I think what Jean-Paul said is correct. Like we aren't going to put a brand that really doesn't fit in an atmosphere. And I've seen that happen over time and time again. I go into a festival or a different atmosphere and I look and I'm like, oh, that's bizarre. And it doesn't feel right. And I'm like,
You're
well,
right,
that's,
Andrea.
yeah, it feels forced. It feels
Yeah.
awkward. I'm like, oh, that's just weird. But we really try to make sure that when we show up or when we propose to our clients, you should go to X, Y, Z, they're the right places for them to go. And then when we're building that activation, taking into account the balance of where we are and as well the brand's kind of identity and values. So we don't want to completely abandon either or. So it's kind of a fine balance between the two.
Exactly.
Perfect.
I agree.
So then what role does storytelling play in designing brand activations, especially in festival and carnival settings?
Well,
Well,
go ahead,
go ahead.
JP.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Well, I think, brand specific, every brand has a story. I know I've been very lucky to work on brands that have very, very deep stories that span over 150 years. So we can show up in places and tell our stories and be very authentic. And I think when you're telling stories of any brand, it's really important for that storytelling experience to be authentic because consumers can call you out from a mile away that you're full of it. And I think that's really important. We see a lot of fabricated stories, a lot of forced messaging. I think if you come into a space and you kind of build that brand activation based on stories, based on experiences, based on what's going on with the festival and your brand, you'll have a more successful consumer interaction and it becomes more authentic to the entire space instead of just bullshitting your way through whatever you're at, to put it bluntly.
Well, that's okay. I mean, no BS here.
Yeah.
No BS. Well, I'm going to jump in on what Andrea said. I think we're going to get along, Andrea. We can take a coffee another time because exactly when we produce events, if the brand doesn't integrate within the event, the team, the concept, it's a bit hard to do the message and the storytelling and integrating. It's a bit in our case. I'm going to give an example. During the Grand Prix race weekend in Montreal, if we have a brand that actually goes in the team of the event, the reception from the festival goers and the clients that come to the event are going to be more receptive, and the storytelling with the communication strategies and marketing strategies of the producers will get along and will be married better for better results. So it's very important to not only sell the sponsorship, but to guide your clients and telling them the approaches to take with your communication strategy so that they can integrate properly.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because at the same time, when you're looking at everything has to work, right? You're talking about it could be family oriented and things could be out of place, as much as it could be more adult oriented and something else could be out of place. So it's I guess you've got to know your clientele and who you're trying to get at and what each individual festival or uh, carnival brings to as its unique value to the brand.
You're right.
How do you assess the return on investment of brand activations and public installations in these large scale events?
I can go. So first of all, very importantly, it's again, the results of your clients are very important. If you have a client that comes in 1 year, it's great. It's part of their marketing strategy. But usually a brand that comes for multi-year and an event speaks by itself. It has to be measurable. So depending the type of festival, there's events that are done to sell and at the same to promote. But if it's a mass marketing concept strategy where their goal is to get a space in a shelf in a Walmart and a Costco, that their goal is brand awareness, to put taste to the lips to the people, sampling opportunities. So depending on the events, it's giving the most samples out, getting data capture for remarketing, retargeting purposes. So we tell our clients an event in which when we work on an event is transforming their marketing expense into an investment. If they're at an event and their objective is to give 40,000 samples over a 3-day event, well, while they're there, we're going to tell them there's going to be a lot of lineups. We're going to encourage them to create lineups so that they can also collect data or give samples and products while they do the experience. So data for us in the world of festivals, a lot of our clients in what we do, we encourage them to build database because we lived it during COVID. All festivals and events during COVID when or brands and that came that didn't own the data, it's something very hard when you retarget your offer. So for us, it's data capture.
Okay.
And
And
it
for you,
really, yeah, it's difficult. I'm not gonna lie. It's difficult sometimes because clients are investing so much in these partnerships. They're not only paying the partnership fee, but then they're paying people like me to come up with it and go do it. So they're paying a lot of money. And some of our clients are sales driven. So we talk about how many engagements we have, whether we have an interactive game or tool that we want to use, if we're doing sampling, if we're doing sales, which is a huge metric, because if we don't sell, then we got to pay the bills. And then there's others that are sheer awareness. It becomes about reach and impressions and media that are doing nothing but creating consumer awareness. And sometimes we combine them all together because if you just look at sales, you're really missing out. Well, I got to talk to 140,000 people, or I got to
right,
talk to 1 million people, or, we do a lot of these proprietary events for our clients, and they might only be for a couple of thousand. But where the value is in the reach, is in the value in social and the value of online and things that people that aren't there almost have FOMO. So it's like that's a bit of a metric too. It's like how many people are like, oh, I wish I would have seen that. I wish I would have been there. So when we explain to clients in a recap report how something went, it becomes both qualitative and quantitative data because it all matters. Because it also matters how you made the consumer feel, because that's what
right,
they're associated with your brand. And
Yeah,
that's
the
not a
experience.
tangible number. But if you say, if someone's like, you know what, I had the best time with that brand ambassador, I had the best time at that activation, or that looked really cool and I had a good time there, you have a positive brand experience, which hopefully will translate into a sale somewhere down the road, somewhere else.
right. For the next question, when designing an interactive installation, what factors are most critical for ensuring it resonates culturally with the audience?
Sounds a bit like the other question that we had earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and try to answer that question. It's a tricky question. Uh, Again, I find it's exactly when you're doing the activation, the agency or the brand or the festival, depending who's giving the space. There's different events in the world of festivals. There's some fixed spaces where they're part of the festival's team. I'm going to use an example. At our event, we have the Pit Stop Challenge. The Pit Stop Challenge is already tailored, ready for our sponsor, and they just put on their brand. So we dress it up according to the theme of our event to do brand engagement. We had Williams Degree, the speed stick. So they came and did sampling while we were doing the activation. But we came with the concept, the themes of the zones of the event to dress it up. But in general, the agencies consult with their clients, and they try to develop the brand direction towards the creatives of the event to be able to tailor it to the audience.
Okay. And for you, Andrea,
Well, I'll use.
I'll word it a different way then.
Yeah.
So is it in that situation, would you, like, do you find things that where you can put the brand, let's say Jack Daniels, on say you have an activation to implement, is it more that you seek out where you can put those, or would you now say, okay, this festival I want to come into, and we'll think of something to be able to adapt the brand to work with that situation?
We'll never adapt a brand like Jack Daniels to fit in because it's such an iconic brand.
Exactly.
It's like the other way around. But like I'll use Jean Paul like his events as an example. We've been there for 2 years, in two of his properties, and how we activate on one property during F1 is very different how we operate on the second property for F1 for the same brand. But
exactly.
Jack Daniels in authentically in a way that the brand, has its identity. We haven't screwed with it, but we've also made it fit for F1 because they do have a global partnership with an F1 team. So we make sure we incorporate that into our activation. And also brands like Jack Daniels obviously have directions that globally have to be followed for certain things. So we make sure to integrate that in. But then we also make sure that we come in and we're like, well, we're in Canada. We're in Montreal. We're in Toronto. We don't want to make it. It's very different how it shows up in Canada versus how it would show up in the US. And we want to be true to also the brand and also to Canadian consumers because we know there's a difference, and I know there's a difference. How I show up for other brands we work on really depends on, some clients say, this is what we want to do and this is where we want to do it. And I'm the unfortunate person that just has to make it work. It's like, okay, well, here we go. Let's do this and figure out how best to come across for the consumer. So, you get really lucky sometimes with some brands and it's a natural fit. The other times you're like, okay, like let's figure it out of how we're going to show up in an authentic way somewhere else for a brand. So it's a balance, and sometimes it's a clash, but you just got to sometimes make it work.
Can I jump in on what you just said, Andrea?
Yeah.
So Jack Daniels, a very good example. Jack Daniels, everybody knows it for it's reputable. It's also music. It's entertainment. It's rock and roll. Jack is it's a brand that internationally, worldwide known. And they're sponsoring the Formula One, and they created that brand integrity with the special edition bottle that they brought, the Jack Daniels McLaren edition for the collectors that they did during the Formula One, which is phenomenal. And the team that goes in, because they're already in the F1 world, so when they're coming on an event that's in the F1, there's like coalition that works perfectly and people see it. But during the same weekend, there was the Maxim Grand Prix party, which is a party, not a festival. So the engagement for the people, the way that they produced it was an experience where people had to go in their zone and live it. But it was, again, teamed in the race weekend. So it was a very beautiful way of making that, how can I say it? I don't want to sound too marketing, but I call it sometimes brand wash, where it's good subliminal marketing with experiences well done and well tailored to the event.
Okay. Thank you. So what can you discuss the importance of integrating social responsibility or sustainability within brand activations or for public events?
Well, we're already speaking with alcoholic brands. When you have an alcohol brand, that's number one thing. Drink reasonably, 18 and over. The message is always important. when it comes to alcoholic brands. When it comes to any other brands that associate with the event, for sure, as a promoter, we're responsible for what message is being vehiculated. So we don't let our sponsors just do any message. We're very careful with what is propelled and what is exposed to our clientele. So that's a bit of internal work that we do with the brands to ensure there's a coherence and that does not entail to negative messages. That's maybe what I have to say on this question.
Yeah, I think
What about sustainability? Oh, well, maybe Andrea, you can answer more about the sustainability aspect.
sure, working on a lot of different beverage alcohol brands, it's important to us to not create a lot of waste. Sampling, I
Mhm.
know, creates a lot of waste. Cups create a lot of waste. So when we go into different festivals or activations, we always make sure our sampling cups are compostable and biodegradable. So it's not just
Eco-friendly, yep,
yeah,
eco-friendly.
eco-friendly. We don't do flyers. We don't do giveaways that, are, I call them cheap and cheerful, that are going to end up on the ground. We want to give someone something that is valuable that they will keep. Because I've seen a lot of giveaways that just end up in a landfill, which is unfortunate. Making sure that everyone within our footprint, our brand ambassadors that are there that kind of really make these things come to life. Like I can build the most beautiful thing on the planet. If I don't have great brand ambassadors, it's not going to live. But making sure that everyone's respectful, everyone's kind, we're only speaking to people that are of legal drinking age. If it's liquor, if we're running a contest or an activation for another brand that has a social, like post on Instagram or post on TikTok, if there are children that are younger, teenagers, someone find mom and dad, make sure everything's okay. Because we know 13-year-olds have social media, but we want to make sure, mom and dad or whoever their guardian on site is okay with them posting, a picture to get a free whatever. But when it comes to beverage alcohol, we're very strict that if we think you might not be legal drinking age, we will check your ID. So no one can interact with a beverage alcohol brand that we activate with unless you're legal drinking age. And that's a hard and fast rule we have.
And making sure that they don't come twice to get a sample also, even if they're on the legal age.
Yeah, they don't love
Uh,
us because we mark them with the Sharpies. They don't love us.
Even
We
better.
can't get them off. Yeah.
Controlled environments are very important as well. We had many gambling companies, so we make even sure that the activations are not seen by young audiences to live their experience. Very important to controlled areas and how it's being seen, where it's being photographed, how the experience totally has to be controlled depending the brand and product.
And a lot of provinces, when you work on beverage alcohol, you have to have a certain certification. Quebec is different, Ontario is different, Alberta is different. So for someone like me, I have what I need in every province to work on beverage alcohol. Even though I'm not serving a drop, I'm still responsible for a beverage alcohol brand. All of our brand ambassadors have responsibility training. They all have whatever certifications they need. In Ontario, it's called Smart Serve. In Calgary, it's called Serving It Right. It's all different. But we make sure that the education is in place for responsible use, making sure that, having security available is also there as a support should you need it. Hopefully you don't need it because someone tries to snag that second sample or gets in line twice. But, having those checks and balances in place to make sure that, you're doing the right thing for the brand you're working on, and also making sure you have environmental considerations in place for what you're giving out or the consumables that you're using that are disposable, like cups.
Okay. And do you leverage digital channels, social media, AR, VR, etc., to amplify brand activations or installations before, during, and after events? JP?
AI is something definitely where the future is going. So it's something in consideration. It's not something that I know that we've integrated yet in our events. In marketing, it's getting there, but in the world in which I'm involved, it's not yet installed. But integrating these technologies, enhancing the events are going to be, we're already in discussion with different virtual reality activities to live experiences for brand engagement, We did it with one of our clients in which it was a data capture actually strategy where we wanted people to feel that they were in the tallest tower in Canada. One of our clients is a real estate, the biggest real estate developer in Canada, and they're building right now the tallest tower in Montreal, the One Philip Square. But they used the technology to sell their penthouses. They were making people go in this structure where you suddenly felt that you were in virtual reality on the 70th floor and living the experience. People were engaged to know more about these establishments, and it was a way of communicating with the brands. Virtual reality, EA, we are seeing this in the sporting world where gaming is very important. So we have a lot of simulators at events where we see that adding simulators or gaming components are very great for engaging brands with our events.
Andrea?
Well, I think, we have a whole team here, gratefully that deals with social posting. So that's a little bit out of my personal wheelhouse.
Mhm.
But, we've used VR when it first came out to showcase the Jack Daniel's distillery. So you could
Yeah,
put on the
I remember
goggles and
that.
take a virtual tour of the distillery or scan the bottle label and you got a bit of a history about the brand. So, we've used it a few times. We've kind of gone away from it because that particular tour, it's like, okay, that's great, but the festival goers want something else. We've done that a few years. Let's figure out some other things we can do. So, we have a whole team here who works with our brands to deal with social, whether it's during or post, or even, live to help the brands kind of live beyond the people that are in that space at that time.
Okay. Um, what strategies can help overcome challenges associated with setting up installations in diverse or unconventional festival locations?
Well, I think it's always a challenge when you're outdoors and you don't know what's going to happen. So I've been to venues that I've only seen on paper before I get there, or I've seen in pictures or stalked on Google Earth. Um, so, sometimes when you're an event producer and a builder, you have to be ready for just about anything. And the team that you surround yourself to make these things come to life, because it really does take a village, need to be equally as skilled at solving problems when they're right in front of your face. Because as much as we want to plan and as much as I want to control every little thing I can control, there's certain things I can't control. I can't control. I didn't anticipate the curb to be there, or that wall wasn't in the site plan, and now there's a wall, and what am I going to do? Or now there's a pillar. Like, you have to be able to adapt and have a team around you that can help facilitate that or kind of solve for the problem that you're looking at. We've been through things like tornado evacuations, like having plans in place that for weather, plans in place for crowd, having pretty much a plan for everything. And, ironically, what I found in my life is if I have a plan, then it doesn't happen. If I don't have a plan, then it's going to happen. So I figure if I
Exactly.
have all the plans, we're going to be good. But, making sure that it's safe, making sure that it's structurally sound, making sure that, damage and defacing of the brand is like my worst nightmare. Like overnights when you're not there and something can happen. So taking everything, even though some of the things you think of sound insane, taking everything into consideration when you're trying to set up and build, or it's, we've done things for other clients that are in Nunavut on ice packs, and we're bringing gear in with skidoos and on floats. So we're used to doing things, I've done a show under the Statue of Liberty in New York. Like, it's like, how do you get the gear over there? How do you work with, the police and the National Guard and all those people? I've had a site that's been flooded until 2 days before load-in. Like, oh, okay, well, the stage is underwater, so that's great. Like, what's plan F? Um, so, you got to be ready for just about anything, because who knows where clients want to do stuff. The crazier sometimes the better.
She
Perfect.
said it all. I agree exactly with what she said. Weather is something that for an outdoor event, it's your worst enemy, but you got to adapt and have plan A, plan B, plan C. And when there's no plan C, the plan D comes automatically. You have no choice.
You get forced
Yeah.
in. And
You're forced.
the struggle for someone like me, because even though I design a lot of the events for Jack Daniels, there's other clients we have where someone in the creative department who is at a computer is designing on a piece of paper. And you're like, well, that's great on paper. But when you design something for outside, thinking about the weather, can it withstand the wind? Can it withstand a torrential downpour? I've unfortunately seen stuff go topsy-turvy in weather. And I'm like, well, no one thought about that. But making sure that when you build something, especially when it's custom for a client, or even if it's semi-custom, is it safe enough to withstand a good wind gust? Is it safe enough to withstand a tornado evacuation? Is it going to look like garbage as soon as it rains? Because I've seen that too. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that someone spent hundreds of hours painting and painstakingly putting together, and one good rain, and it looks like trash. So, thinking about how's it going to look after it rains is people look at me like I'm bonkers, but like I think that's a valid question because it's
Totally.
going to rain. 9 times out of 10, it's going to rain. And if you're outdoors, don't put fluffy ribbons on something that's not weatherproof.
Make sure
So,
you got gutters on your tent.
yeah.
Or waterproof bows.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't use
You know?
velvet when it's outside and going to rain. Use something else.
Yeah, So then let's talk about what metrics or indicators are most valuable in evaluating the success of an on-site activation or public installation.
It depends the brand and depends their objectives. Every brand has different objectives. We work with brands like Dr. Oetker. Dr. Oetker, they were evaluating. They came 6 times at our event in a row. Their objective was mass marketing. They wanted to have the most pizza slices given for free to people. So they built an objective. They said, if your event is able to give 30,000 samples, we're quite happy. He said, no, you can give 60,000 samples. So controlling their strategies and sample diversity to their client was very important. What that goes with taste is the difference. A lot of brands, for them, it's important tasting. You can see it for energy drinks. Energy drinks is a special kind of activation by itself. Majority of major brands, Celsius Energy Drink, Monster, Bang Energy, Red Bull, all these companies at the initial, they put hundreds of millions of dollars of their marketing budget launches, but they don't want to sample an eco cup friendly cups, those companies. Their companies, they want people to walk with the can. They want people to see the can. So giving the can for them is the objective so that they can remember the brand and product. Some of them, it's living the experience. We did for, I don't know if Andrew ever remembered this activation or you ever heard about this activation we had done in Montreal. We had a client, which is Chic, the razor blades. They used to come at our event. Their goal was to give 100,000 starter kits to their clients because they knew that once they get a free razor blade, they were going to have to recharge it and buy the cream. And for them, it was a great experience. But they told us, wow, there's so many people at this event. And we ran out after the first 2 days. So they were stuck with an activation empty. That's very bad. We cannot have a non-activated zone. So we sat with them. We said, why won't you? We had a huge meeting with their agency. They said, JP, that's a crazy idea. But it actually became very successful. We told people, create a lineup while you're giving them the samples that you want them to have, but at the same time, you have time to collect contest and get their email for retargeting. But why don't you make them shave at the event? So I said, no, that wouldn't work. We said, trust me, you're going to get bigger lineups, better. You're going to have to live the experience. We had put 12 sinks nonstop. People are just shaving, living the experience, and that became an experience. And when they analyzed their return from that campaign, they saw direct return. It's different for each brand. A bank is not the same. What does a bank is? A bank is not interesting for people at an event and a festival. But if they engage it with an activity and they have one-on-one experiences, we had people shooting a ball with the Impact of Montreal and a goal so that they live the experience, so that they remember the brand as an experience. So Andrea is I'm in the production of an event, and I'm also in the sales of sponsorship. But in terms of executing, Andrea, I think she has a couple of beautiful answers on that. But for us, it's different for each brand.
Yeah, it's always different. We've done sampling programs for yogurt where it's just about volume. It's like get the samples in the hands. It's sheer volume. We've had other brand activations, even just recently as last week. It's about, they wanted to give away 100,000 gifts. We gave away the free gifts, but it was a interactive experience for consumers. And it was also like a brand recognition. How many eyeballs could get on that brand in 5 days in a live space? For other brands like, you know, Jack Daniels, for example, it's a combination. I strongly believe that when you make someone participate, we don't do what I call the smash and grab, which is like the volume. So if you want a little goodie, or if you want to try to win a t-shirt, or you want to try to win a McLaren keychain, you actually have to do something. You have to interact with us. And the way we report that back to our clients is like, you're not going to get the giant numbers, but you're going to get meaningful brand activation.
Quality.
So it's quality over quantity, but there's still a good amount of quantity, but you're converting those people into your brand. We go to Osheaga a lot, other music festivals around Canada, and we encounter a lot of new drinkers. Like they're just 18 or they're 19. They know the brand. It's like their dad's brand or their grandpa's brands. And we try to like, we're trying to bring it back so that it's youthful, it's fun, it's hip, it's edgy. And we do the things to participate. I think this year in Osheaga, they were all shocked because we tried a new type of activation in our zone in our space for the consumers. People were waiting in line for 2 hours for this thing. And they're like, oh, yeah, I want it. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to wait for like an hour and a half. I don't care. But I think when you report back to clients, it's okay. A 2 or 3 minute interaction with a BA is more meaningful than 5 seconds and off you go, especially when you're in a space like a festival or a carnival. You have a very captive audience. So, I tell our teams it's really important how we make people feel. It's really important we make them feel welcome. It's really important we want them to come back and visit us every day they come, that they associate with the brand a good time, something fun, something new, maybe things they didn't know before. And it becomes very organic. I don't think it's something that can be forced. I think it really boils down to what you have to offer. And then your brand ambassador team are the linchpin to all of it. Because if they're not welcoming and inviting, and the average person doesn't want to go up to your activation and participate, then it's all for nothing.
Exactly. Great.
So if you're just joining us, this is our panel on strategic collaborations, unveiling the power of sponsors and key partnerships. And we're with Jean-Paul Mouradian and Andrea Boulay. Jean-Paul is with JPM Marketing Solutions, and Andrea is with the Hive. So we'll get back to another question. So what makes a festival or an event sponsorable or not?
All right, that's one fun question that I actually love. I do a lot of seminars, or I try to go in other festivals to help them There's a key phrase that I keep saying. I said it, I think, already twice today. I like saying transforming your marketing expenses into marketing investment. To make an event successful or sponsorable is, I don't want to say anything negative of events that get funding for public funding, but I come from the world of, if I didn't have the government to help produce me the event in which I have, is I want to make sure that our clients come back naturally for their returns. So our events, majority of our events, like the Grand Prix Festival that Andrea is aware of, is the only festival in Canada that it's privately owned of this size. We have no grants, no loans, no citizens' money. It's actually a privately owned event completely. We pay the police, we pay everybody. And there's a reason why I like that and keeping it like that in my philosophy of selling sponsorship. There's events that sell billboards or ads, or they're there to approach their client for the money to produce the event. We are tailored exactly like Andrea said. It's the quality of our client. We want to build that exclusivity. We're Jack Daniels. We're not Jameson. We're Tellus. We're not Bell. We try to build a relationship politically all year long for our clients to be able to feel that brand engagement with the event, so that when they come, it's tailored for their best result. So when we do an event, we make sure that the client is positioned strategically on the event, on its location, and that their publicities are broadcasted to make sure that the client does not only get the boot space and that they're in the socials, that they're in the communication, that they're in all the media recaps and the post wraps. We make sure that when there's an interview with a major broadcaster, to bring it in front of, not always using the same place to do the interviews. We want to make sure a client gets the visibility 360. So when they do their post wrap, they feel that they didn't only get the experience, but they got also the coverage totally. So for us, it's very important that when we go in an event of our client, we try to calculate the ROI. And understanding the result that they can give. So when they come to an event of ours, they grow with us, and we try to understand their metrics and make them understand that it was not only a billboard you were getting. You're trying to convert brand and educate people that this event is actually a useful opportunity for propelling or engaging or maintaining the existing awareness of that brand to the public. So for successful sponsorship program is building the event for the sponsors and not building an event for profitability and using them as bank. I go and work with a lot of festivals that they come into us and they say, "Hey, JP, can you help us build their sponsorship program?" They present us their sponsorship program and they say, "We want $20,000 for this category. We want $50,000. Why you want $20,000? Why isn't it 50? Why isn't it 10? What is your metrics that you're using to say the value of your sponsorship?" Because they're actually asking the value of the sponsorship because of the money that they require to produce the event. We're doing it totally the opposite way. We say if a sponsorship is worth $20,000, it's because this is what you're getting. If your ROI is quantified, we quantify ROIs at 20 on the return of editorial and media value. So when we come to sell partnerships, our client feels that they're getting a piece of our event and we help them grow. Just to close in maybe in this category, just to give an example, it's been our presenting sponsor, one of our presenting sponsors, which is a very big real estate company that I mentioned earlier, but we gave them exclusivity in real estate. So for them, it's good positioning, but they needed to build awareness within their program. So in our contract, we added a clause saying rights of secondary sponsors in the world of construction. So they can get to collaborate with other of their brands from their world to engage and communicate also with our event, which becomes a bit of a political event as well for the brands. So when we said Jack Daniels earlier, which we were proud to work with Andrea's team and everybody, but it doesn't finish only at our festival. I do interviews all year. Our companies, we're proud to say we're with Jack Daniels. Our company completely becomes brand ambassadors of Jack Daniels. We work for the brand. We refer to their agency opportunities and clients to be able to see that we're just not a billboard. We're a network. That's what we work and help the festivals do to be a great collaboration.
Andrea, from a brand perspective?
Collaboration is super important. And even as someone who's in the trenches daily, building, being there when it's live, taking it apart, I'm infamously the first one on site and the last one off site. But how we get treated as we advance the festival, as we try to bring it to life, as we go through the process, because we know there's things that bubble at the top, but we go right through to Z. And what matters to me, and I've taken it back to a lot of our clients, I'm like, well, all they did was give us a hard time. All they did was say no, So doesn't feel great when you're trying to work on a partnership. And, we're trying to bring our best forward for the guests that are at X, Y, or Z festival or carnival. We need a little bit of love back, right? We need a little bit of leeway. If I'm like, I need an extra 5 feet, are you cool? Instead of being like, no, you have to stay here. Be like, yeah, sure, let me see what I can do, and no problem, take an extra 5 feet if you need it. Because, space is at a premium. But if I can say, listen, if you give me 5 feet, I can actually do this. And making sure that on the back end, we're supported. in the planning and in the partnership and going through that process, because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of dedication for the teams to kind of make that thing come to life in the space. So when we have good partnerships, and we have some partnerships on the Jack Daniel's side that I've had for quite some time. And, it's a good partnership, and it's, what do you need? What can we do to help you? The same with Jean-Paul and his team, like, how can we help you? How can we make this come to life? What do you need from us? That collaborative atmosphere is really important. If we try to go into a property and there's constantly walls and barricades and no's and just too much, it's not a word, but there's no cooperation to help really bring this to life. I look at it from the back end. I'm like, is it worth it? They just want the money. That's kind of what it feels like sometimes. They just want the money.
Exactly.
And that doesn't feel good for anybody. And that's not going to make for a successful partnership at all.
Mm. So, I mean, it's more or less, again, obviously building like any relationship, building that relationship, and hopefully that it goes forward for a longer term than just one season. Because I guess it becomes easier as you go through the process with people if they're more, if you have a longer term agreement with them.
It does. And it makes it easier year over year because you kind of know what to expect. But I remind people that want to do what I do. It's like your reputation precedes you. You might not think people notice. You might not think people see what you're doing, but they know. And they know if you're going to work hard. They know if you're going to put the blood, sweat, and tears literally into what you're doing, no matter how small. I firmly believe I can have a 10 by 10 space, or I can have a 50 by 75 space. Both can be equally as beautiful and equally as fun. And I don't think it matters how big or small it is. And if it's a sampling program, or if it's, a brand activation, when we show up at Maxim, for example, we have a bar and we have an experience for people. The client laughs. She's like, I walk in, the first thing I see is the Jack Daniel's bar. I'm like, yeah, that's about right. That should be
A
right.
spectacle, by the way, this year. Wow. And every year is just a wow. But this year, really love the activation, and even the first edition that you guys did with the official greeting cocktail. That was just beautiful. We're very proud of the setups that you guys do. It's, again, the experience, how you make people feel is how you propel a brand. And I find that with what you guys do with the JD or any of your other clients, it's again, how you make it engage and how you have the collaboration with the brands. That's when you see, when there's an event, it's about money. And a lot of the events are driven by money. They're programming more than building relationship. We have clients that have been with us for 13 years, like MBNA MasterCard. We've been with Labatt for 19 years, which is building a relationship. It's a marriage. And if the teams and agencies and activation, you don't collaborate, you can't grow. But it's not easy.
Yeah, and
A lot of work.
it matters the relationship we have with Jean-Paul and his team. It matters the relationships we have with our suppliers, whether it's for power or labor, or you get into a situation, you're like, crap, I need a favor. Like, who do I call? So, the relationships and your reputation within your space matters, because you get into a situation, you're like, oh no, I need a forklift. Like, last minute, and you call it a favor. If that person doesn't know, like, that's a stand-up person and they're in it for the good, they're not going to come and help you. But having people around you that can help you, having partners on the sponsorship side that are willing to help, or like pick up the phone when you call, or like return your text message, is, like, for me, super important, because I'm running on the same adrenaline and crazy timelines as everyone else, but sometimes need a quick answer. And if they take 2 days to get back to me, the opportunity is gone. But having a team that realizes it's just as important to get back to you quickly and support you in what you need, it makes all the difference in a partnership.
So, in what ways have consumer expectations for brand experiences evolved? And how do you adapt your strategies to these changes?
Well, I think consumers over the years, they want more. I think with the evolution of social media, with, when I'm gonna date myself, but when I started this, Facebook didn't exist. Like Facebook
Exactly.
was like brand new. Like we thought we were being really cool with a live Twitter wall at one point. We're like, look at us, we're like balling now. But with Instagram and TikTok and everyone's got an iPhone, like BlackBerry is no longer king anymore. Um, you know, every little thing is scrutinized. So the attention to detail is like it's like the saying, the devil's in the details, and that's very, very true. Because if you don't think they're going to notice, they're going to notice, and they want to be engaged, and they want to be entertained, and they want beautiful things, and they want you to be friendly and nice and kind and smiley and all those things, and you have to deliver. You have to deliver. And, as activations get bigger and bigger and bigger, festivals get bigger and bigger and bigger, so do the investment dollars that brands have to make. I see a lot of activations that are gigantic. Like they just eclipse our little Jack Daniels thing we got going on. But the consumer feeling is not the same because they're like, well, it's just big. I don't feel like I belong here. I don't feel like I'm welcome here. Like I don't really like what they have going on here.
Bigger is
But
not always better.
it's true. But the consumers pay
No.
attention. They pay attention to more stuff than you think. Like, we make sure when we have BAs, we have a mix of both guys and gals. We make sure, you'll see our BAs covered in tattoos. I don't mind piercings, crazy hair. We want people to feel included in our space versus what used to be the traditional beer brand ambassador. Like it's
You're right.
exactly what you thought, right? And
Yeah,
people
we
don't
saw
want to
that.
engage. They're like, that's not friendly. That doesn't reflect me. They want to see themselves reflected in what you're doing. And with every diverse environment you go into, you have to make sure that you're being inclusive and making sure people are welcome because that's what people want and that's what they should get.
Andrew's totally right. So look, I don't have much to add on what you said, but it evolved a lot. Like it's been 24 years I've been doing this at this event, and I've been in sponsorship for many years for other festivals and other activities. Facebook, when we had signed LG as our presenting sponsor, I never had spoken to them. I never had seen them on the video before, and they were a title sponsor for 6 years. And they used to say TV losing war. I used to say that in every interview, TV losing war against the mouse. Who would believe that a computer mouse would beat TV traditional media? We used to be all about print, radio, and now we're not doing those. We're traditional media. And now what's untraditional? Social media, TikTok. So everything that we do is advancing so fast. Now we're talking about AI. We didn't speak about AI a year ago. And we used to put the QR codes on our signs everywhere so people can download an activation. We saw that died. That doesn't work anymore. QR codes is waste of time. It's really we created after COVID this party in which we're talking about for our event, the Maxim party. We went out all out to create that experience. It's the experience. If we would have done it in a club, it's not the same thing. It cost us a lot of money to go in a space where there's nothing recreating because the audience wants to live an experience. So another thing that Andrea said that I agree completely, inclusivity. Everybody's beautiful. It's not about the physiques. If you go too much about the physiques, now we're having a judgment. So having a person coming in a gala with a jeans, with a bow tie, we're not all, it's everybody has a fashion. Who are we to judge their fashion? So inclusivity is something important. Doing the red carpet at Maxim for us is do the red carpet at the Maxim. Live the experience. So it's the red carpet experience where everybody with a running shoe or with a high heel, you're all welcome to our event. And the brands get to contact and speak with that. So for us, with your question, Tony, every year we have to know what's the new technology, where it's going. So AI definitely our office and our teams are looking out onto that right now because we know it's going there.
Thank you. So what advice would you offer to brands aiming to align themselves authentically with a festival's community and cultural identity?
It's a bit like what we said earlier, but to go directly, let's say there's the World Carnival coming to Montreal. Okay, like the beautiful image that I see in back, a beautiful emblem of the festival with the colors and the feathers and putting the downtown and the world. And so we know that it's colorful. So when you know it's colorful, you got to bring color to the brands, color to the activation, color sponsors that relate to that movement. So for an event, it's very important that your approach is targeted to the audience of the brands that you're going to go get. So there was an event, I don't know if you, an international event called Illumi from Cavalia, the White Horse event. We were their marketing agency to bring sponsors. We're not aiming sponsors that are not related to their sphere. We were going to their color team, scheme, direction. It's outdoor, it's winter. We're going to go more vodka because vodka is cold, it's ice. We're going to go more towards brands that are aiming certain targets of their strategy. So for Carnival, definitely, it's when you think Carnival, it's summer. It kicks off summer. It's not an event that you're going to go target destination, world, air flights, uh, hotels, anything that touches tourism because it's international. So targeting international sponsorship is very important. Air Canada, Air Transat, cruises, destinations. So that will be catered and building that exclusivity for the brands to grow with the event that you grow. Try us, live it, and grow with the brand. Adapt to the brand. If a sponsor came in at your event at $20,000, don't treat your sponsor that came in with less budget. Maybe that sponsor is going to become your $1 million sponsor. So we grew up with sponsors that we helped them and they came in with entry level and they became title sponsorship with us in different of our events. So be always listening to your sponsor. Don't force your sponsor messages and things that you don't want them to hear. Listen to them. Don't ever go in a cold pitch. Understand what's their objective so that you can adapt your sponsorship plan to what they're targeting and doing. That's my recommendation.
I think Paul's right. It's picking properties that work for the brands you want to show up there. I think every country and the brands, how they act in every country is different. How, we've been lucky enough to have some beer global sponsors where their offices are in the UK, and we did the O2 Festival with them. And we've done the Dave Matthews Band Caravan in the US with another beer brand. But how Jack Daniels shows up in Brazil at Carnival because there it makes sense for them. So sometimes globally it's not always the same for each brand, but in each country there's a place. So if I tried to take a yogurt brand into a music festival, sure, you're going to get volume, but what else am I going to get? Like, they're not going to sell yogurt.
No.
Like, they might get some, maybe, like, are those festival goers going to go to the grocery store, or their parents going to go to the grocery store? So it's, kind of pick what the cascade effect is going to be for some of those brands. Obviously I'm very fortunate anywhere where there's music, Jack Daniels can authentically live. I'm fortunate that way. I don't have to force anything. But, we've done a lot of other brands at a lot of other places. For example, we had an idea for one of our grocery store clients. Like, well, there's a festival, it's a camping festival. The festival goers have to go in and camp starting on Thursday. They can't leave. If they leave, then they have to go. They run out of like healthy food by Friday, and all they're doing is drinking and eating potato chips and festival food. I was like, well, let's build them a convenience store. Let's bring apples and bananas and bread and orange juice, like healthy things, because these kids are living on hot dogs and potato chips. And at that point, whiskey and Monster. So, so there is an opportunity for other brands to show up in unconventional ways, especially when a festival or a carnival has a camping aspect, or if it's just a day aspect, or if it's a cultural aspect. The parent company of Jack Daniels has a lot of other brands that play very heavily in cultural spaces and art spaces. So, would Jack Daniels show up at an art gallery? Maybe that would be awkward. but one of their other brands would be a better fit for that. But it's knowing your audience and also knowing what they need. Like if there's a need to be filled, can your one of your clients maybe fill that somehow with an activation or a sponsorship?
So I think that's all the time we have for today. That went by pretty quick. We didn't even get to all of our questions, but thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. I think that it gives the carnival industry is not structured as such where it has that whole infrastructure behind it. And I think that the way that you've explained it, and both of you, it gives us a better idea of how we can potentially attract brands to be able to support the carnival experience, which, as we know now, is much larger than we've thought it was. So thank you very much again, Jean-Paul and Andrea, for sharing your insights. And
Closing statements.
and any closing statements?
No, I encourage you guys to keep pushing it and building this up, and totally a fan of the movement. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Lorraine and Tony. Looking forward to see this come to life in real, and you'll have the support of our team definitively.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have one question that's for Andrea in our Q&A. Andrea, how are you able to custom tailor the experience for the consumer at F1 between a Maxim party and trackside, as they are so different?
It's not as hard as maybe you think. I don't know. I'll preface this. I've worked on Jack Daniel's for about 18 years. The Hive has had a relationship with the parent company for 25 years. So I'm so immersed in the brand, in my brain, I can flip it quite quickly. But, Jack Daniel's is still a premium brand. It is still, it is one of the most recognizable brands in the world, but it is still premium at its core. When you show up at Maxim, you're going to a glamorous party. There's people in gowns. There's people in their best party outfits. They're ready to have a good time. We are still authentic to Jack's rock and roll black and white roots, bringing in their McLaren sponsorship, using a lot of color. I tend to hate logos. I call it logo soup. So we use color and texture and visuals. And then when we go to the track, at the track or at Crescent Street, the track only lasts for so long every day. People are there for a different reason. So we're going to go to the track. We're going to bring another little trick we've got up our sleeves. We're going to make sure it's customized to that environment and doing easy, small things. Sometimes the changes you have to make are not grand. How we show up at Crescent Street is completely different as well. So it's like, what does the Crescent Street consumer need? Because we have to balance what we're allowed to do on the street versus what we want to do on the street. So it really...
And that also changes from city to city.
It changes from city to city, festival to festival.
Exactly. So
when I take what I call the Jack Daniel's Traveling Roadshow to Osheaga, it doesn't show up the same way as it would as a country music camping festival here in Ontario. And even the vibe of those brand ambassadors and how they dress and how they behave is all different. But at its core, Jack will not change. At its core, Jack is always Jack, and it's a vibe. And, we designed the things that we've been using since 2017 to be timeless. They're still sleek, they're modern. I don't use, you would think a jacket wood and all that, none of that. Everything's black, everything's lit properly. It was designed in a way to kind of be fashionable, if you will, and very tailored to the Canadian market. We get visuals,
there's
and
sustainability as well. There's elements of sustainability because you don't have to rebrand on a yearly basis, which then creates waste, right?
And it's more economical. Markets like Canada are not large. It's just the way it is. Canadian companies don't have American dollars or international dollars. So, that's where the little details matter. The little tiny things, like a custom designed sticker on a toolbox. Someone looks at it, they're like, I want that sticker. and it's like a little sticker. It costs you maybe 5 cents. And you had someone design, say, I want, a Jack Daniel's F1 inspired sticker. But it's very easy to do when the brand for me makes it easy. I'm sure if I was talking to you about yogurt, I'd probably have a harder time swapping that around. But it doesn't, the consumers, it's very clear what the consumers want. And we make sure we take the balance of where we are with the brand and show up correctly in each of the spaces. I don't know if that answered your question in a roundabout way.
No, I mean it did, because again, it's about adaptability. It's about saving the client at the end of the day money, saving yourself headaches, facilitating the whole process, as well as maintaining a certain level of branding and that is identifiable throughout a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah.
So
And you learn. Like the first year we showed up at Maxim, we showed up with, I'd never seen the space. I went into the space sight unseen. I'm like, okay, well, this is what it looks like on a floor plan, so let's have at it. And we had an idea. And then the second year we showed up, we're like, well, we can do better than that. So, we showed up with something, same idea, but a little bit more grand. So, the third year, I'm hard pressed to kind of figure out what's going to top that. But, when you go
sometimes it's
back,
back to sometimes it's
yeah,
about going back to the simple, right?
that's true. And,
Yeah.
I always say to our teams and to my team, listen, we might only get one shot at this. So like we're lucky in the case of F1, we get to come back year over year and tweak it and make it better and improve. But sometimes you only get to show up once. And if you show up once, you better knock their socks off right out of the gate. But a lot of the times when we design traveling road shows for brands that go to many different festivals across Canada, the assets we design and come up with are modular and they will live in any festival environment. They
Yes.
are relevant whether I'm in Vancouver or if I'm in Quebec or if I'm in Ontario. And that's really important because as soon as you get super specific, you can only use it once. And like Tony said, then unfortunately it goes in the recycling and never to be seen again.
Well, hopefully in recycling. If not,
Hopefully in the
it's
recycling, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
landfill.
But
Well, thank you both so much again. I don't seem to see any other questions that have come up. So we'll end our session here. Thank you everybody for taking in our session on collaborative ventures and strategies. I hope it was something that many of you can take bits and pieces from to take to your own areas and places in the world and be able to put into effect. And I would more or less say that's it for our interview today.
Thank you very much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your insights. Looking forward to working with you both over the course of the next year. We have a lot of crazy things to create. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Dream
Lorraine.
it, believe it, and build it. Yeah. Take care.
I have to experience my F1 experience. I have to.
You have to come.
Oh yeah. You want to live it? Come and
Yes.
live it. We're crazy. We say we're crazy in Montreal, but have fun. It's a kickoff of summer Grand Prix Montreal. Would be love to host you and receive you
Awesome.
with a good glass of Jack Daniels, huh?
I'll try. I'll try.
Take care,
Ophelia
everybody.
will
Nice
have
to meet
to
you
spend
all.
the-
Thank you.
Ophelia will have
Take
to
care,
spend the
everybody.
summer in Montreal.
Organize
Say it
that,
again?
Lorraine.
Montreal is the city of festivals, so you have to spend the summer in Montreal.
Oh, your
I
microphone,
agree.
Yardley, we can't hear you.
I'm Gemma is my people, so I'll be there.
Working. Can you hear me now? I said to Atalia, you're going to have to spend the entire summer in Montreal because we are the city of festivals.
I'm all for it. All for
Good.
I'm waiting for you, Atalia.
it.
Sounds good. So we're going to take a small break and we'll be back with our last, I can't even believe that I'm saying it's our last panel of the summit, if you can believe it. We are waiting for Nova Lorraine who's going to give us a masterclass on innovation and social engagement, which will talk about AI that we touched on before. So that will be extremely important. So go ahead, and now I feel like I need a drink. So we're gonna go and do that, and we'll see you at 1:30.